Thank you, David, and thank you, Peter. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Ambassador the Nigerian ambassador. Well, actually, I'm going to talk about the youth in Nigeria and their preparedness for this election. But before I do that, I'm going to be talking about some progress and threats to the election. And I'm also going to make reference to what Peter and David have said. Now, both Peter and David, and I think also Ambassador Sanders did mention that the past 3 elections, they said that severally, and like for the first time, they're hoping for credible elections. I want to put it on record that 2003, 2007 elections, where they had issues. They were, I mean, you couldn't describe them as credible elections. But the 1999 elections were credible, and no less a personality than former President Jimmy Carter said so. Jimmy Carter was on the ground, I was on the ground, several people were on the ground, and they said those elections were credible. So it's not going to be the first time there's been a precedence for credible elections in Nigeria. And the thing about precedence is like it can happen again. And then also, Peter Lewis did say something about Nigerian political parties are like elites bargaining, elite cartels, you know, in existence to share spoils, and that's not entirely accurate. There are problems in Nigeria, you know, like with the political parties. Since 1966, Nigeria has had issues with having parties that were strictly built on ideology and stuff like that. You know, there's been a lot of challenges, but there's also progress. You know, for instance, with the PDP, they had a situation where some programs that have actually benefited the people. You know, there's been debt relief. They've also opened up the country to a revolution in the communication industry, and then also with the opposition parties, particularly with the ACN, there's a universal consensus that, you know, like ACN has done a lot of good in Nigeria. And then in the north, you have the ANPP in a state like Kano, which has actually, there's been a lot of improvement, massive improvement. And then also, there's been, especially between 2003 and 2007, there was the fastest economic growth in Nigeria ever. So while it is true that there are issues with political parties in Nigeria, they are not just entirely elite cartels for sharing loans. And then also, I would like to talk about the progress that's being made in Nigeria, and then I'll talk about the threats, and then I'll go on to the youth. In Nigeria, the issue with past elections, I believe, was the fact that INEC did not have financial autonomy. But with the Electoral Act that was signed by President Jonathan on the 20th of August 2010, the new INEC, they now have financial autonomy. They are no longer tied to the apron strings of the president. You know, so, and then we begin to see that this is actually affecting the behavior of INEC. For instance, last week there was a very, very public spat between INEC and the PDP, where the PDP complained that INEC was refusing to accept their candidates. And then also, we have a new voters register. It's actually right now, it's undergoing verification. And then also, when I talked with the INEC chairman, I interviewed him, I believe that was in November, and I asked him a question very pointedly. I said to him, because the last chairman of INEC, he had refused to accept evidence of electoral malpractices captured on mobile devices, cameras, and, you know, like modern devices like that. He explained that the Nigerian Evidence Act was very ambiguous. And I asked him, I said, if I was able to create a platform, which I'm actually creating right now, it's called Build Up Nigeria, where Nigerian citizens can actually use their mobile camera, their phones, you know, like any modern device, and capture evidence of electoral malpractice, would you prosecute the the offenders, no matter how highly placed. And he actually said, yes, he will do that. This made the headline the next day in Nigeria, and it actually challenged him. He came out and he informed, when he got to Nigeria, I believe he gave an interview to Disney and said, yes, he will do that. And then also, in 2003 and 2007 particularly, we see that one of the problems that we had in Nigeria was that the EFCC had, as the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, they were involved in the process. They actually blacklisted a lot of candidates that they considered not fit and proper to contest elections. Now, the problem with that is that a lot of people on that list were people that were opposed by the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo. Now, this time around, we don't see that kind of activity going on. The EFCC is not involved in the process, and then anybody who wants to contest elections actually is being allowed to contest elections now. But there are threats to the coming elections, and I believe that the first threat is, as I think David Patterson actually mentioned, that is compromised INEC officials. Now, I mean, everybody agrees that Chairman Jega his university agreed to have an unimpeachable integrity. He's known to be honest, he's known to be transparent, but he's one man, he's just one person. In INEC, they have several commissioners who had been involved in conducting elections that were not very credible, even beyond 2007. And one of them is Ayoka Adebayo. And I asked Chairman Jega right here in DC, I said to him, I mean, why aren't you like getting rid of these people who are tainted? Why aren't you doing that? And he answered me, he said, well, he doesn't have the power to hire and fire. And I think that's possibly why the 1999 elections were more credible, because the chairman then, he was working on that in the military, he had the power to hire and fire. One thing I know is that even if Chairman Jega cannot hire and fire, he has the power to reassign these commissioners to administrative duties where they will not be involved in like collation and actual conduct of the elections. And I will actually say that the most pressing threat to the 2011 elections are ethno-religious tensions in Nigeria. Now, I'll just quote this day paper. This day is actually I think it's the preeminent paper in Nigeria. And I'll quote this day in their edition on Thursday, 17th of February. And it said this, it said, a major factor in the mobilization for CPC, according to sources, is the money misconception. I had limited time, so I couldn't say all I wanted to say. Now, I actually disagree with what Peter Lewis said about President Jonathan not having limited political experience. Actually, Jonathan has been in partisan politics for 14 years, was a local government politician, became a deputy governor, vice president, acting president, and president. He has actually, as a fact, had more experience politically than the last 3 United States presidents, sorry, including the current one, and then than the last 2 British prime ministers. He's actually had more experience. So I really don't understand what he means when he says that he has